What's going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and today I'm continuing my video series on Solipsism rolls that I am excited to bring into the Edge of Fate. This one features a fan favorite exotic perk that dates all the way back to the Witch Queen expansion, so fans of the Witch Queen are going to recognize this instantly, and we are also going to be pairing it with our strand element inside of our Prismatic Warlock. This build features a lot of AoE damage, a lot of orbs of power, easy super regeneration, and of course, as always, a bunch of chaos. This one is extremely fun and can be used in virtually everywhere. Let's get it going, everyone. Alright, so you saw the scorecard there. 35 orbs of power for about 200 kills. It's a little bit less than where I like to be as far as orbs of power to kills ratio. I like to be somewhere between 20 and 30% at minimum. I feel that's a good balance and also helps out my teammates a little bit more if they have trouble regenerating their powers or just want to spam them more often. The orbs of power you make, of course, are picked up by other teammates and can further the destruction on the battlefield. But it's going to be, you're going to have to put that idea to the side a little bit once we go through the role of Solipsism that we've got for this build. And I'll explain that here once I get through this and the weapons. So let's get it started. Our main play is going to be spamming as much strand on the screen as possible and then doubling down and taking advantage of our Solipsism role, which is going to make this build sort of independent of the artifact, although this season specifically it's going to play a pretty big role as far as the additional potency of the build. So let's get it started real quick. Our super of choice is going to be Needlestorm. Needlestorm, of course, is your main strand loving super. I think it's probably the best out of all the three, although some might debate me between the three classes. I think Needlestorm beats Titan and it also beats Hunter. You can also make an argument for this build of going with Storm Trance. Now, Storm Trance, you're going to have to decide if that's what you want. We're not using Crown of Tempest, so the additional discharge rate of Storm Trance is not going to be prevalent in this setup. So if you do want to use Storm Trance because you want to take advantage of Arc in the artifact, I understand. But outside the artifact, you could easily go with both of these. But in the video, I prefer the Needlestorm because it causes more chaos. And again, I'm going to explain why that's important here in a second. For abilities, we're going to go with Healing Rift, Burst Glide, Arcane Needle because we can stack it 3 times. And for this build, we're going to go with the Threadling Grenade. Now, the Threadling Grenade is not what I would consider the best grenade of all the prismatic options. However, I think it fits this build better. You could certainly make an argument for Storm Grenade or even Vortex Grenade, or I guess even Healing Grenade if you really wanted to. But like I'm going to go over here in a second, the Threadling Grenade is going to help you cause more chaos, and that's kind of what this build is all about around the Solipsism role that we have. For aspects, we're going to go with Feed the Void. Defeat a target with any ability to activate Devour. Your Devour effects are improved, restoring additional health and grenade energy. So this is going to feed into our ability to generate more Threadling Grenades, which again, outside the artifact, are going to pair well with this role of Solipsism, but inside the artifact are going to grant us even more damage potential. Next up, we're going to go with Lightning Surge. While sliding, activate your charge melee ability to blink forward, calling down lightning strikes that jolt targets as you rematerialize. Targets that are hit by your lightning strikes grant you stacks of bolt charge. So on top of being able to spam our grenade, which is going to be one of our main plays, we're also going to be spamming our melee equally. Inside the artifact this season, we're going to be able to take advantage of a lot of arc buffs and arc debuffs, but outside the artifact in future seasons, this is not going to be any less potent per se. You're still going to get bolt charged, you're still going to get amplified, you're still going to be able to generate elemental pickups, which we'll go through here in a second. And not only that, but you'll be able to basically alternate between the two. And again, our goal of this build is to cause as much chaos as possible on the screen. For fragments, we're going to go with Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants either bolt charge or in this case with this super, Woven Mail. Now, like I said, depending on what you want, if you want more bolt charge, select the Arc super. If you like the additional damage resistance, Woven Mail is certainly potent as well. Next up, we're going to go with Facet of Devotion. Defeating targets affected with stasis or strand debuffs grant bonus light transcendence energy. It's important to note that you can have transcendence play a very strong part in this build. Being able to alternate between your lightning surge and your threadling grenade, and then your super and then transcendent, and then go back to your super and or your other abilities is going to make you, again, cause as much chaos as possible with this build. Next up, we're going to go with Facet of Protection. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, the effect is increased. Now, I forget the exact amount. I think it's still at 30% damage reduction, which is huge because you are essentially going to be the most aggressive chaotic player, hopefully, in your fire team based on this build. Next up, we have Facet of Awakening. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows. Generates an elemental pickup of the matching damage type. So, elemental pickups we're going to generate in this build are going to be Tangles and Ionic Traces. Ionic Traces, of course, give us our ability energy back. And Tangles, of course, inside the artifact this season, we're going to be able to sever targets. Outside the artifact, we're going to be able to, again, take advantage of our Solipsism roll to generate additional chaos. Facet of Balance rounds us out. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with our darkness damage grants grenade energy. We're going to be using a strand weapon as our main ag clear, and we have some options of what we're going to choose here, and I'll go over those in a second. But being able to spam your threadling grenade, as well as being able to take advantage of Facet of Devotion, which is defeating targets affected with strand debuffs, grants you bonus light transcendence energy. Those two fragments are going to work very well together, both inside the artifact of this season and outside overall big picture synergy. For stat distribution, I'm going to ask you to focus on resilience, discipline, and strength in that order. The reason that you don't necessarily need strength to be as high as your discipline is because you're going to be generating an obscene amount of ability energy anyways, and because we have two fragments that basically mirror one another and reflect energies back and forth, we're going to be able to take advantage of additional light transcendence energy being generated, which means we'll be able to spam our lightning surge just fine even when we pop our transcendence, or I should say especially. So the trade-off is being able to get your grenade back as quickly as possible, which again, I'm going to go over why that's important. For weapons, you've got some options here in the Kinetic slot. One of my buddies, Quicksilver Storm, it's been on the shelf for a long time, but in this style of build, it absolutely does pair exceptionally well. No, it may or may not have the champion stunning capabilities depending on the artifact that you are pairing this with. However, the chaos factor is key. The biggest thing that I can say here is that the grenade chaser is going to absolutely be activated. A lot of people like this weapon because it's extremely stable, it has low recoil, and you get the firing homing rockets at the enemies, and that is all gravy. Adding the grenade chaser, if that's not something you really use that much, you just like the way the weapon feels, you're going to be using it a lot with this build. And again, I'll explain why here in a second. Next up is going to be Final Warning. Final Warning is going to take advantage beautifully of this Solipsism roll. And also for inside the artifact, it's going to give you additional stunning capabilities for barrier champs. And then last but not least, the Navigator. If you just got it, I hope you love it as much as I do. Being able to unravel or give yourself Woven Mail and then obviously unravel targets and be able to stun overload champions with your main strand weapon is key here. But you are going to have to decide if you want to run double special because we're not using another primary ammo weapon. In the energy slot, I switched it up a little bit from the last video just based on what we're looking for. Iterative Loop makes another appearance in one of my build videos, one of my favorite fusion rifles of all time. I basically only use this thing for champs. I hardly ever use it for ad clear, but in the event that you do want to, you will be generating obscene amounts of ionic traces with this thing, and make sure you put on compulsive reloader with your volt shot so that you can keep proccing volt shot over and over again. If you don't want to go with the arc element for this season, or you want to see how something else functions beyond an arc weapon. I highly recommend checking out Afterlight. Afterlight can roll with Pugilist as well as Reservoir Burst. There's a number of perks you can put on this, or I guess roll this with, that would be viable. Reservoir Burst is probably one of the best options, so I'd say at least shoot for that. And then inside the artifact this season, depending on how you mod your artifact, you can take advantage of Volatile and all those things, or Void, buff, and debuff against enemies of the Traveler. And last but not least, you've seen it featured in I don't know how many videos now, but the Guardian Games Trace Rifle, also any Trace Rifle that's got the jolting feedback in it, is one that would round out this beautifully, but you're going to have to make some decisions on what you run in your heavy slot, depending on what you use in the energy slot. So going through the heavy slot, my first recommendation is Pro Memoria. Reconstruction and Bait and Switch. You can proc Bait and Switch endlessly for that 35% damage, or actually I think it's only 30% damage buff to your rounds that you fire from the weapon for a short amount of time after swapping to it. If you end up going with a Trace Rifle in your energy slot, two excellent options for rocket launchers are going to be the Cynosure, I think that's how you pronounce it, Reconstruction and Explosive Light. Start picking up your Orbs of Power early, and then pretty much every time you bust this thing out, you are going to have Explosive Light X1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, which means it's never, ever, ever going to be just a bare bones round from the barrel of this rocket. And then, of course, you could always go with Reconstruction as well as Envious Assassin on your crowning duologue. The weapon may not be as flashy, in my opinion, as the Cynosure. However, I think this weapon is still very much viable. It has exceptional velocity. It has very, very good handling, something that the Cynosure doesn't have as good of handling. But again, it just depends on what you want. Reconstruction is pivotal in both of those. So if you want Envious Assassin because you're going to be doing lots of damage with both weapons first before switching to this, or you prefer to have the Explosive Light and just pull this out for champs, specifically Unstoppables within this artifact, again, you're going to have to make a decision based on what you run in your energy slot. But all three of these weapons are very viable and will do you justice. And one more thing about Pro Memoria, don't forget you got that Dealer's Choice perk on, and we're going to be running a Strand Siphon. So if you do end up using this to clear out a couple of ads after you get done with that champ, hey, more power to you, and you're going to get your super back even quicker. For the armor, I'm going to start with the roll of Solipsism that I kept talking about when going over the build at the start. The Solipsism roll that I recommend making sure that you get, or at least stow it away for safekeeping, is Spirit of the Necrotic and Spirit of the Swarm. The reason that I care about causing as much chaos on the battlefield as possible is because when we spam that Lightning Surge, or if we just want to use our Arcane Heal from a distance, we are going to be spreading poison damage over time. Now, you lose the add effect from the Necrotic Grip itself, which is the damage increases over time. However, being able to kill those enemies that are poisoned by your melee damage it's going to spread poison and continue the effect on and on and on. So in a very busy activity, think of like an onslaught, maybe certain nightfalls, certainly some strikes, definitely some raids, and of course some dungeons, you can wreck the battlefield by virtually just using your abilities. And of course, as you damage these enemies with your Strand debuffs, as you kill them, you're going to get additional light transcendence energy, which means, yes, you guessed it, you can continue to spam the necrotic poison even through your transcendent cooldown once you activate it. Spirit of the Swarm is going to give you bonus threadlings threadlings once you spawn tangles. And since we're using a Strand Super and a Strand Grenade, and also a Strand Melee, I guess technically, as well as your main ad clear weapon, you're going to have tangles all the time. So poison on top of tangles, tangles on top of poison, grenades from your grenade launcher, from your Quicksilver Storm, however you want to look at it, you're going to be causing chaos. So yes, this might not be the most DPS-y type of roll for Solipsism. Certainly there are other options out there if all you care about is damage per second. But as far as controlled chaos, and I do mean controlled chaos because you will be in total control of all of this Solipsism roll, if you don't have it, go start farming the Pale Heart and or pick up a bunch of strange coins and make sure you're farming Zur during the closing weekends of this season. As far as the mods for this build goes, we're going to go with the helmet. We're going to go with a minor strength mod or major strength mod, depending on what super you want to use. I switch back and forth between the Arc Super as well as the Strand Super. So you'll notice that I've got the heavy ammo finder, and I do have the 3 energy cost Strand Siphon, but I can switch that down to harmonic. The reason it doesn't matter though is because if I add 5 to that, I'm going to be at 97 strength, and it's not going to matter. It's not going to add any benefit to me whatsoever, so I don't really care. And then we're going to roll with the hands-on, because on our gloves we're going to put 3 heavy-handeds on, which means we're going to be generating orbs of power like crazy. No, I don't necessarily care that I'm not getting an orb of power from my Threadling grenade, because again, I said it's not the most powerful grenade out there, so I'm not really hurting for the orbs of power. It won't be generating and slightly more difficult and or higher in content, but I do want my orbs of power from generating Lightning Surge. For the chest armor, we're going to go with Arc Reserves for our energy weapon. You can also throw on Strand Reserves for your heavy weapon. Again, some of this is going to be dependent on what you decide you want to do. Because we're going to go over the artifact and I'm taking advantage of the artifact, I do want some bonus Arc Reserves, because with Reconstruction on my Pro Memoria, I don't know if I'm always going to get through 160 some odd rounds before switching to other weapons or before the damage phase is over for certain bosses you might see throughout the galaxy. Throw on 2 elemental resistance mods and round it out with a general armor mod of your choice. For the legs, go ahead and throw on whatever general armor mod that you need. I highly encourage you roll with Innervation, Invigoration, and Absolution. You can make an argument for dumping Invigoration and putting a second Absolution, or possibly a Strand Weapon Surge mod. For the Solipsism bond, make sure you open up that Artifice armor slot so you can get a +3 to any stat of your choosing. Throw on whatever general armor mod that you need. I highly recommend using Font of Restoration so you get bonus recovery back. Again, things are going to change in the Edge of Fate, which I'm going to hopefully be able to go over here in the next week with you guys, as far as what kind of armor to possibly be thinking about for the Edge of Fate. And then, of course, Reaper and Outreach. Now, Outreach can be substituted for Bomber to get your grenade back faster. I like Outreach because, quite honestly, everything else I'm doing is going to give me bonus energy back for my grenade anyways. So I think Outreach deserves at least a nod here, but I can understand if you're looking at this going, you know what, I don't care, just give me my grenade back faster. Believe me, I get it. For the artifact, again, I made this build. Well, it's not me. It's not like there's nobody out there that hasn't gone over this style of play or that role of Solipsism or anything. Outside this artifact, that build that I just went through is going to function just fine. So once we get our new artifact, or however Bungie's going to do it in future seasons, just know that you may have to tweak things a little bit, but you have quite a few options to be able to take advantage of that Solipsism role just fine. For the remainder of this season, though, it's important to note, put on Unstoppable Fusion, Overload Machine Guns, and Piercing Sidearms. Now, if you do switch out your energy and your heavy weapon, make sure you switch it out for the mods that will help you stun champs if you're going into harder content. In the second column, we're going to go with Vile Weave and Unraveling Orbs, again, promoting our chaos even further. In the third column, we're going to go with Hold the Line, because I want some bonus healing back when I'm killing enemies with my machine gun. I want Dielectric for my Lightning Surge. And then in the fourth column, I want Flashover, Horde Shuttle, and just for the sake of ammo economy, I want some gold from lead. I don't often get to put gold from lead in my build as much as I wish I could. So just make sure you're being conscious of your ammo if you are running through your heavy ammo faster than maybe some. And then in the final column, Limit Break and Particle Reconstruction. Particle Reconstruction is going to turn our Iterative Loop into a semi-respectable DPS style weapon, or it will just leave it as a backup DPS weapon, but it won't be as light hitting as normal. Now, once Particle Reconstruction goes away, is Iterative Loop going to still be viable? 100% it's going to be, because Volshot still exists, and so does Compulsive Reloader, thank goodness. And then it's important to know flashover, of course, is going to cause chaos because you're going to be able to be amplified, which means you're going to be able to run around the battlefield faster, spamming your abilities. And of course, Horde Shell, damaging unraveled targets with a weapon, occasionally spawns a threadling. Again, I just want to be able to generate as much chaos as possible because I'm going to be generating as much poison tick damage as possible. So one of the reasons why I think you should try this role of Solipsism and this build specifically is because, quite honestly, it's extremely easy to use. There's something satisfying about being able to use either your charge melee in Lightning Surge or just your Arcane Needle from a distance and be able to see the poison spread instantly. Now, whether or not you kill that enemy is, dependent on the activity that you're running and the difficulty degree of the enemies you're facing. So I understand that some people might look at that Solipsism role and go, man, I'm probably not going to take that into a GM. Others may think, hey, maybe I will take that into a GM and maybe I'll switch up the weapons a little bit and be able to double down on the poison tick damage and maybe take advantage of some other buffs and or debuffs. That's why this build is going to function just fine outside of the seasonal artifact for the season. This build has been around long before this season. This build has been used by I don't know how many streamers talking about how great it is for the Solipsism role and pairing all kinds of weapons to buff and debuff themselves on top of what the Solipsism can bring to the table just by its own potency. So you're going to be able to have a lot of fun with this build, and you're not really going to have to think much about what you're doing because just doing basic maneuvering with your Prismatic Warlock is going to not only generate additional threadlings, it's also going to generate poison tick damage, which ordinarily only exists theoretically with the Le Monarch and or Osteostrega. So if you haven't tried this out, but you are curious, I would say if you've got some time to farm for this before the Edge of Fate, go ahead and start farming for it. See if you can get it. If you're not in love with it, just throw it in your vault and save it because we don't quite know what's going to be happening at the turn of the season. So if you did find anything helpful in this video whatsoever, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who's still looking around wondering what Solipsism roles might be viable in the Edge of Fate, or maybe someone who's just they're stuck on one role of Solipsism but aren't really sure about other role options and don't feel like going through endless forums on the internet to figure it out, please share this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people is possible. And my goal with doing these videos is to encourage you to not wait until the Edge of Fate to start farming for different Solipsism bonds. You don't want to be farming for last season's exotic armor when there's going to be all kinds of new things to explore and try to figure out, with all of the changes that are coming. If you guys by chance are looking for a non-toxic gaming community, I highly recommend checking out my Discord. I will have a link in the description of the video as well as a dim link. And of course, you guys, I always welcome feedback, positive, negative, or suggestions or whatever. That is what makes this game unique, is the feedback. And of course, shout out to my Discord. It is a very, very well-blossoming community right now. There's a lot of experience levels high and low, so if you are that solo player that hasn't quite found some pals to go around the galaxy with, I encourage you to check it out. Or the savvy veterans that think, hey, I might be able to help, I encourage you to check it out. Again, the community is to help as many people as possible in whatever community or level that they may need it in. I think this community is slowly but surely making its way there. So I'm going to switch over to another highlight video. It's going to be kind of similar to what you saw, and I'm just going to run through a couple of final things and call it a day. All right, I'm going to switch over now. So like I said earlier, fans of the Witch Queen will completely appreciate Spirit of the Necrotic. It does miss out on the additional tick damage increase that Necrotic Grips, the actual exotic armor, does give, but between that and Spirit of the Swarm, this is one of those builds where you can take it into pretty much anything and cause a bunch of chaos. I wouldn't use this build necessarily if my goal is to do huge DPS numbers, but the difference is being able to generate tick damage virtually all over the battlefield. Maybe you've got someone in your fire team who is only focused on DPS. All you're going to do is enhance their ability to get you guys from point A to point B. And that's what the game is all about, is being as much of a team player as possible and helping your team succeed. All right, guys, I will see you next time. Take care.